everybody. Happy Wednesday. Another live stream. Woohoo, I'm on a roll. Tomorrow's live stream will be the open to anyone to comment live stream. We're going to give that a try. Hey, Hunter. Welcome. Thanks for joining. We have some really interesting stories to go over today. Oh, thank you, Shar. This is a new shirt. And then also later today, the Harley Quinn review will go up. That's already done, actually. And so it's all loaded and ready to go. And then the She-Hulk breakdown, I'm sorry it's late, will go up tomorrow. So anyway, there's just two stories today, but they're real doozies. And then we're going to do an Ask Me Anything. We'll do a supersize. I always run over on the Ask Me Anythings anyway, because I love talking to you guys. But we'll do that for the third section. So these are two really good stories, and welcome to everybody. Also, a lot of new members, because yesterday Jerry and Zeester were so kind to gift 150 memberships total to some people, and it was so nice of them to do. And also, it was really nice to see so many of you delighted to get a membership. For those of you that did, that was really sweet. So I love the love. It's really great. All right, so let's jump into the first story of the day. Hold on. Boop. Okay, so I don't know if you saw this, but there is a story about Marvel and its VFX division that just won't go away. Here's the Vulture anonymous story that went up yesterday. I just put the link into the comment section, and there has been a lot of discussion on Reddit. I was speaking to someone I know who's in that industry, and they were like, where's all this coming from all of a sudden? Because it's not like Marvel has changed their behavior. So I don't know if, I think, when people see a little bit of blood, everybody starts to pile on, or some weakness. Hey, Square One. Hey, Nadeem. So I feel like that might be potentially maybe where it's coming from a little bit. But I think it's very interesting, and I wanted to discuss it because I think I not only want to add like a business perspective onto the discussion, but I also want to discuss where I think it's showing up in other parts of the entertainment business. And it's fascinating to me to see what's going on. Hey, Cam Creative, I'm glad you're able to join in today. First off, I want to just point out that business, the higher up management, is never going to look out for you voluntarily. They're never going to look out for your best interests. And that's just a sad fact of life. That's why there are contracts. That's why your contract is so vital. Now, of course, you can only sign the best contract you can at that time. Everyone has had that happen to them. I've had that happen to them. I think you need to think about your career as a journey, and you really need to weigh what the pluses are to the minuses. So when you're starting out, sometimes, you got to take a little bit on the chin. But the people who are complaining are people who have been working in the industry for quite some time. I'm going to speak to this, though. Hey, the Bucket Hat Master. And you're wearing a bucket hat in your photo. That's hilarious. All right, so anyway, so you need contracts. Never underestimate the importance of your contract. And don't be afraid to ask for what you need. That's also why you need an attorney. And I know that an attorney is expensive, but when you're negotiating a very important contract, it is worth the fee. And sometimes an attorney will take a percentage of your payment versus, an hourly rate. But and make sure you get an attorney who works in that field, because then they can know what to look for. So you need a good contract. And then also unions, I think, are very important. Hey, judicial protest. That's very nice of you to thank you. That's very generous of you. I have super chats turned on and super stickers. So we're still figuring out how to work that into the live streams. But I wanted to acknowledge that was very generous of Judicial Post. So anyway, or Robert Wallach. So you need, hey, Specs NL. So you need contracts, and then also unions. Unions are really important. Now, unfortunately in this country, I'd say maybe about 20 to 30 years ago, unions overstepped their bounds, and they became so aggressive that even the workers didn't want to be affiliated with them because it was, hurting the relationship with the businesses. So to be fair, unions kind of self-destructed, but unions need to come back. Unions need to exist. It's very bad not to have unions, particularly for certain types of jobs where you don't have a contract, where you are you're an employee, you're not getting paid per gig, you are employed by a company long term. That's where a union is extremely important. And I'm surprised that some companies like Amazon have been very successful in union busting. You should always try and have a union. Now, unfortunately, you want to make sure you have the right union leadership, but you have to find that leadership. Unions are extremely, extremely important. All right, now Disney, of course, that's right, Keith, stupid corruption. There's corruption on every side. There's corruption everywhere. It's an unfortunate fact of life, and I think we're more privy to it because of social media, because people share more stories. But I think I think it's tempting to think things are worse than they've ever been, but that's actually not true. If you look back in history, you'll see that a lot of this stuff is cyclical. You'll see that's where the phrase comes, if you don't know your history, you're doomed to repeat it. This is actually something that's always happened, but you know about it more because of social media and the internet and the ability to talk more. Unfortunately, though, that also spreads more lies. So, everything is, the good and the bad. So anyway, Disney, of course, is extremely aggressive. Disney has always been aggressive. They're aggressive with everyone. They're aggressive with theater owners, as you know. They're extremely aggressive in making sure they get those big screens for themselves. They're extremely aggressive with third-party contractors, which I've heard about firsthand. But this is how business operates. And Disney does this because they can get away with it. Disney is the most successful company. They just announced that they were selling ads for an upcoming Disney Plus version that will be ad-supported. I think it was like $9 billion of ads that they sold. It's incredible. So, the one who has the gold, that's the golden rule. The one who has the gold makes the rule. So Disney, I think I don't fault them for the way they run their business, because that's just the way it is. All right. I think that at some point you have to maybe look into your soul. Like Apple sends a lot of their stuff to be made in China, and you hear horror stories about those factories. That's something that you gotta have to have a deep look into yourself and decide whether or not that's the kind of person you want to be. And I wish that more people would do that, but I think that you would be really doing yourself a disservice if you assumed that somebody was going to do that. You have to, I think, I like to say, always assume the worst so you can be pleasantly surprised instead of bitterly disappointed. That's one of my favorite sayings in life, and I would tell everyone that they should probably follow suit. It's a little pessimistic, but, I think it's a better way to go. Now, I also think that Marvel is not the only one that's egregious when it comes to handling their VFX teams. I mean, look at what happened with Sony and No Way Home, right? That's right. MJ said the same thing, right, Keith? That's why I like MJ so much. She's great, Zendaya's character. But, look at the way No Way Home operated. They were sending updated versions of that movie to theaters after it released, because, now they send digital copies to theaters. So I don't think it's fair to necessarily say this is all Marvel's fault. But let's go through some of the things that were revealed about how Marvel operates. And I'll tell you how I feel about them from a business perspective, right? And also a human perspective. All right. So they're saying part of the problem is that these companies are doing low bids so they can get the job, right? And that means that they don't have enough workers working on the project. This anonymous person said, I should really have 10 people working on this project, but instead I only have 2 because the higher ups at my company bid so low that that's all they can afford. Well, that is one of the few things where I feel that's on Marvel or any company accepting the bid. They really need to go to the people placing the bid and go, well, what do I get for this amount of money? How many people are you putting on this? Like, how would you ideally like this to be run? I mean, I think that's really, really important. That's how I think it should be approached. That's the one area where I'm like, yeah, Marvel should, or any studio should take a look at how the VFX team, you should go visit the VFX department and see what morale is like and see how many people are there. And you should be like, yeah, not enough people. And then they should get upset with the higher ups and say, you gave me a bid that was undoable. Your bid is not realistic because you cannot deliver what you need to for that amount of money. So that'll get that to stop, because, maybe Marvel should put a floor on the bid. And they should be like, you're going to have to sweeten the deal some other way, because I know that this can't be accomplished for any less than this amount of money. All right, next they're saying that Marvel will not change its release dates. They have inflexible dates. You can't blame Marvel for that. you can't move your release date. You're putting in a huge amount of money to advertise that release date. Now, should Marvel be a little bit more careful and all these companies about picking their release dates to begin with? Yes, of course they should. But, hey, Raleigh, but once you've picked it, that's all she wrote. I mean, I think in a few cases you can move it, but it's extremely detrimental. Everyone starts wondering why you did move it. Look at all the pandemonium caused by the pandemic release dates being moved. You keep your release date. I think the only reason that Top Gun Maverick got away from it is that nobody was really paying attention to when that movie was going to come out. I think that, release dates are very, very important. I would stick with them. I think that, when a VFX team signs on to a movie, they really need to just accept that release date and consider that in their bid. Then they said Marvel loves to do last minute changes. They'll rewrite a whole third act just because, and I think that I don't have a huge problem with that either. I think this speaks to not having a good enough script in the beginning. Oh, thanks for upgrading, Haley. Emily says companies aren't going to change to be nice. Companies like Disney have to be forced to change. That's why unions are important. Amen. Exactly. And fandom. I'll say it now, but a lot of you are complaining about Thor 4. You don't think it looks good. You don't think it is very good. And that is a wake-up call. It's low box office. As long as somebody can get away with something, and this is in every single aspect of life, as long as someone can get away with something, they will continue to do it. So unless their feet are held to the fire, it's the path of least resistance. Like, do you want to overhaul your entire movie-making machine? No, I do not. So you have to say, if you don't, your movies are not going to do well. So that's really important. We'll talk about DC in the next segment, Britt. So I think that, the last-minute changes, they're fine until they're not fine. So I think that, Marvel maybe should work harder at having better scripts to begin with. I think that, and also that why would you let Taika Waititi film 4 hours of footage? I mean, they get dailies. You know what he's filming. They don't send Taika Waititi off to the wilds and say, I wonder when he'll return. They keep an eye on you, very closely. And they should have been like, what the hell are you doing? All right, so there's that. And then also, finally, this VFX artist said there's a real problem with inexperienced directors. That the inexperienced directors don't understand how to work with VFX artists. So it takes more time and it's more difficult to get it done. Now, that's not Marvel's fault. That's not the VFX department's fault. That's film school's fault. Film school really needs to start, hey Joe, film schools really need to start integrating how to work into VFX teams into their training. Because it's such an integral part of how you make movies today. That should be a class. How to visualize and to see how things will look early on in the process, how previs works, how to work with that department. Hey, the one moody guy. That's, I think, really, really important. And so that trickles all the way down to film school. And then also, I think if I were someone who ran a VFX company, I would say, wow, none of these directors know what they're doing. I'm going to come up with a boot camp that's a 1-week course, and I'll either add it for free to sweeten my bid, or I'll charge for it, and I want to send all new directors who don't have VFX experience through this boot camp as soon as they sign on for the gig. That's what I would do. That's what I would do. Britt says, don't they have coordinators and managers? They do have coordinators and managers, but the final call belongs to the director. So that's why it's so important. Hey, Alok, and this anonymous person said one of the big problems here, oh, that's very sweet of you, Leah, and I like that unicorn sticker. I thank you. I'm glad you guys like my boot camp idea. What was I saying? Hey, Ruby. But yes, also this person said there was a lot of hemming and hawing. Hey, Lou. The director was like, I don't know what I want. Can you try something else? So that's really a big problem. So, don't blame these directors. Fix it. I think there's a lot of and that's another problem. Nobody really wants to step forward. It's not their job to step forward. And I can understand that too. But that's why you need someone to say, I'll fix it. Hey, Owlwatch. Are there any topic classes you didn't learn in film school that you had to study up yourself? Owlwatch, I was very fortunate to go to a very good film school where I learned quite a bit. I would say the best classes that I took were cinema studies, producing, great class, and the summer blockbuster. That was a wonderful class, which I learned, and it was a summer class, so like hardly anyone took it, but it changed my life. So, hopefully you'll, really, you have to seek out sometimes those, and also hopefully you'll have really good professors. I had some excellent professors. But yeah, so that stuff's all very important. I went to NYU Film. All right, so let's see here. So yes, all right, so this is where I feel this comes in to other situations, all right? So I'm seeing a pattern, and that's that crunch time is a lot of people's problems. We first heard about this term with the video game industry, crunch time, right? Video game business, big periods of crunch. It wasn't all the time, but when a game was coming close to completion, it would be crunch time, right? And it was kind of like considered a rite of passage, et cetera, et cetera. Then recently, when I reviewed Lightyear, I was like, you guys gotta be ridiculous that you have this 4 years that you don't see your families while you're making an animated movie. And I thought I was too much. But a number of you who work in animation were like, you're not serious, Grace. Animation is that much of a all-consuming business as well. And when we're making animated movies, we are indeed hardly talking to our families for 4 years. And I was like, what? That's crazy. And now you have VFX, which is having the same problem. So you have video games, animation, and VFX. This is all the same problem, and it's all the same kind of work. Crunch time one is where you work constantly. You work 7 days a week. You work like, really long hours all day long. You're just glued to that computer, or some would say chained to that computer until it's complete. But yes, that's right. VFX is basically animation. So you have all these people working in these businesses, and I think that I don't work in these industries, so I can't speak to how this happens. But I do feel this is my outsider perspective. First off, I would like to point out that nobody who runs these companies, for the most part, is evil. I've seen some horrible accusations of abuse and other problems like that. That's a separate conversation. As for crunch time, at the end of the day, you go, what are you going to do? It needs to be done. This is the release date for the product. We promised it. We advertised it. We have to have it done. But here's where I think that you have a real problem. I think a lot of people have had an experience where they have really knocked themselves out trying to get something done, right? However, that's because that person, and this happens with a lot of above-the-line talent, like directors will knock themselves out, actors, producers, but that's because above-the-line talent gets the credit. They're like, I really want this to succeed because everybody will say I did a great job. And then they get a break. They go, whew, that was rough, and then they go take a break. Digital artists don't get any credit, and they don't get a break. So that's something that really, really needs to be considered. Why are you making people work so hard? What is in it for them? And that's like the real problem. I think that the companies are not doing enough with incentives. They're not doing enough with reward. What are the overtime pay? What's the overtime pay? If you have a contractor and you go into overtime, you get paid a ridiculous amount of money. Now, the only one that can make this happen are unions. The only people that can make this happen are unions, because they will call for a strike. And then things will have to be fixed, or you can't get the assembly line going up again. So unionization is really, really important. And also, digital artists asking themselves, what am I getting out of this, right? I think that digital artists have to really think about that as well. When they're negotiating their contracts or they're considering where they work, what are they getting for their time and efforts, right? If you feel your crunch time is worth it and you're rewarded for it and you feel you're moving up the company, well then good for you. That's great. But if you feel that's not happening, then you should revisit whether or not that's what you want to do. And I think it can be very scary and it can be very difficult because life changes are hard. You've worked so hard to get where you are. But I think at the very least, there's a plethora of opportunity now because there's so much of this kind of content. So you can really weigh your options. It's really tough. It's really, really scary. But at the end of the day, nobody cares more about you than you. No one is going to make sure that you're happy and healthy except yourself. And if you're fortunate, you do have some people in your life who care. But at the end of the day, it's just you. All right. So what do they say? You're born alone and you die alone. Let's get bleak. All right. All right, so that's the first story of the day. Woo! All right. And I'm sure it's a very rewarding and exciting industry. And I think, if you can get promoted within VFX, that's a pretty great job. All right. So story number 2. Boop. Okay, DC at Comic-Con. What a disaster. What a disaster. All right, so let's talk about what happened. Dwayne Johnson, I feel very bad for Dwayne Johnson. Speaking about things not being people's fault, I feel Dwayne Johnson was set up very poorly here. I think that Dwayne Johnson saw that Kevin Feige was going to Comic-Con, and Dwayne Johnson was like, I want to go to Comic-Con. I'm a natural showman. I'm going to go step up to the plate, and I'm going to save the day. And he did the exact same thing at the Super Bowl. I don't know how many times he's going to let Warner Brothers do this to him. He was like, I want to be at the... Warner Brothers never advertises at the Super Bowl. Historically, they've never done it. Dwayne Johnson said, how can we not advertise at the Super Bowl? I always advertise at the Super Bowl. That's ridiculous not to advertise at the Super Bowl. I want to go to the Super Bowl. And he did go in person. But I'm like, but The Rock, you've been to the Super Bowl so many times, and surely you can get a ticket some other way by drinking an energy drink. By the way, Dwayne Johnson is making so much money. I don't know if you saw the video that he made when he showed up to Comic-Con. So he showed up to Comic-Con, and he was there. He's like, I'm here at Comic-Con, and he opened an energy drink, which is, he said, it's the first energy drink that has ever been promoted by a DC property. But he gets the money for that. So he got money for not only promoting the energy drink, but he got money for promoting on his social media. His social media game is so strong, he gets money for every social media post that he does. Hey, Roger Beal, you would think, talk about looking out for yourself. And that's why it's so rare to see Dwayne Johnson falter like this. So we'll talk about that in a moment. But Dwayne Johnson's genius. He doesn't advertise on his social media for free, even though he benefits from it. He's like, I don't need to do that for free. I'm a big star. I have lots of things that I'm doing. If you want me to add you to my busy schedule, you got to pay me. And they do. He makes a ton of money from that stuff alone. So I really respect the hustle. I really respect the hustle. So right there, he made a ton of money just with that one little clip. All right, so he went to the Super Bowl, and he had them cut that trailer, remember? And they were like, the world needs heroes. And it was like, 2022 is going to be the year of DC movies. And then they moved all the movies, and that clip looked ridiculous. And so I think he's not used to having to work with DC. Like, Dwayne Johnson is a very well-oiled machine. DC is not. So he's like, what are you doing to me? So he wanted to go to Comic-Con. So he went to Comic-Con, and he promoted 2 movies, Black Adam and Shazam 2. Now, the problem with this is that Dwayne Johnson is poorly cast as Black Adam. I'm not saying the movie won't necessarily do well, but I don't think it's going to get embraced the way that Dwayne Johnson is hoping, because he doesn't have the pointy ears. Dwayne Johnson, by the way, I think is a great actor, but he only does one thing, and so he doesn't really disappear into the character. So a lot of people feel this is just Dwayne Johnson dressed up in a DC movie. So I think that this just isn't going to work out for him. And Jeff Johns, by the way, the ghost of Jeff Johns continues to haunt DC. This was all Jeff Johns' idea. It was Jeff Johns' idea to make Dwayne Johnson Black Adam. It was Jeff Johns' idea to follow his Shazam and Black Adam stories. And it was his dumb idea to give Black Adam his own movie first before being introduced in the Shazam movies. So this is all coming out of Jeff Johns' ridiculous planning. And I wish that Dwayne Johnson had been like, Jeff Johns seems pretty bad at his job. Maybe I should rethink this plan. And then I felt just awful that Dwayne Johnson, I mean, he's probably used to it because he comes from wrestling, but he got booed at Comic-Con. I mean, and I was like, is that a real story? Did he really get booed? Because, so many people want to spread hate stories about DC these days, but I actually saw the footage, and I was like, ouch, that's harsh. So how did he get booed? Apparently he got booed twice, although I only saw footage on the first boo. He apparently got booed when he said his Superman quote, when they said, could Black Adam take on Superman? And he said, well, it depends on who's playing Superman. And the audience actually booed. And this isn't I think that's more serious. Like, if you boo in wrestling, the crowd's just in it, right? And they play heroes and villains, so they want you to be emotionally invested. But when people boo at a Comic-Con event, that should be just like, if I were Dwayne Johnson and I walked off that stage, I'd be so upset. And I would certainly be like, I gotta stop teasing Henry Cavill if he's not gonna show up, because this, as I said in my coverage, this is a dangerous game he's playing. So he got booed then, And then he got booed. Apparently the whole panel got booed at the very end because people were like, where's some other announcements? I mean, they told you up front that it was just going to be Black Adam and Shazam 2. But I think everybody feels that there are always surprises at Comic-Con because there usually are. So, and also, like, why didn't they promote Batgirl? Why didn't they promote Blue Beetle? These are movies that are definitely coming out. So you're like, oh, why wouldn't you release that stuff? Now, I feel, so first off, how can they fix this? They got to stop teasing the return of the Snyderverse. They're not going to do it. And so and I think that people are getting angry about being, used in this manner. And I saw some people, now Deadline reported that there was a rumor that Henry Cavill was going to show up at Comic-Con. And pretty much everyone in the press who's in the scoop game was like, that's not true. But a lot of you were like, oh, but Deadline said it. And so, and I understand. That's a perfectly valid reason to hold out hope. And even I was like, maybe, because if anyone could do it, it's Dwayne Johnson. But based on everything I've heard, it's not going to happen. And so Dwayne Johnson, I think he's trying. And I think I think he's setting up Black Adam to hinge on Superman. And that is a really bad idea. He should not do that. I think he has so many other cooler things to play up in the movie. I think it's a mistake. And as I said, again, it's a dangerous game. And some people said, well, what's Warner Brothers going to do? They can't say that every report is wrong. It's going to be like whack-a-mole. They're going to be doing it all day long. And I would say, that's true. But when it's this serious and this specific, and you're going to have fans be this disappointed, you need to come out and say that is incorrect. Or call Deadline up and have them retract it. You don't have to publicly say anything, but you get on the phone or you go in the email and you say, well, I'd do the phone because I wouldn't want a record of it. And I'd get on the phone and I'd be like, hello, Deadline. That's not true. That's a lie. Please take it out or I'm going to send all my exclusives to a different trade. And then Deadline would go, okay. Like, by the way, hey, Al, thanks for joining, Al Watch. By the way, anytime a trade gets an exclusive, sometimes they sniff it out, but for the most part, it's the studio picking that trade or that reporter to give the story to. So that's kind of the play. That's kind of the pull that studios have with trade reporters. So that's what they should have done, right? But they didn't. And so everybody went to that panel thinking Henry Cavill was going to show up, even though, again, we were all like, it's not going to happen. It's not going to happen. It's 99% not going to happen. And as John pointed out, the Batman was awesome. That's true. The Batman is an amazing movie. Why are we still looking backwards? So I think that they need to stop with the Snyderverse teases, right? And I think they have Zack Snyder doing that cameo in Teen Titans Go. How was that approved? None of this stuff should be approved. They have to have a clean break and be like, we're done. We're done. We're moving ahead. It's over. And I think that, and I mean, it's cruel to some degree, and some people will be very angry. But I think you can see that this path is not working out either. Now, also, I think the reason they didn't have a better presentation is that Warner Brothers Discovery is looking for someone to run DC. And so I think that the division is in a holding pattern. So that's kind of why they didn't have a better presentation. There's no one to really run the presentation, to be honest with you. The current film brass is on the way out. The new people haven't come in. Who would run that panel except Dwayne Johnson? And I think that's what they decided to do. They said, okay, Dwayne, you run it. And he was happy to do it. And I think he shouldn't have done it, to be honest with you. I think Dwayne Johnson maybe should take a step back and let, DC hang themselves, as usual. But yeah, there's nobody there. So there's no one to oversee a panel and to run it. So I think they shouldn't have presented, quite frankly. I would have just skipped it. And I would have told Dwayne Johnson, I would have been like, you don't have a full trailer, just skip it. They're not even doing DC Fandom this year. I don't know why they tweeted the best is just yet to come. I'm like, why would you tweet that? You don't have anything good coming. Only tweet something if you know you have a follow-up planned, okay? Whelm says, Grace, what do you think Warner Brothers does if Black Adam and Shazam don't do box office numbers they're hoping for? The lack of direction is maddening. I think that they're not even paying attention because who would look at the numbers at this point? And I think that all this stuff is just being written off. I think that they're just like, it's like no man's land. They're like, do what you need to do, man. Because, someone else, hopefully, my hope is they will get a new person to come in. That person will say, it's over. We're starting from the Batman and that's it. And everything else is done. I'm just cutting everything off from animation to everything, just everything. We're starting fresh and we're going to build like Marvel has. And that's what I would hope that they would do. And we're just waiting on that individual. I have no idea who it's going to be because it's someone who has to give up their life to do this. I mean, Kevin Feige's happy. And Kevin Feige actually was willing to do DC, but I don't know if he ever actually was. That might have just been a bargaining point to get Disney to leave him alone. And it worked. I told you, Kevin Feige is very aggressive and very, very, very aggressive. That's very sweet of you guys to say that. That's very sweet of you. I appreciate your sentiments. That means a lot. But yeah, so Kevin Feige is brutal. Hey, Jeff Brown, and that's one of the reasons he's so successful. He follows a lot of the really strong, playbooks. He'll never admit that he made any mistakes with Phase 4, but he is changing things. He's aware of that. And I think that he's playing it correctly. Now, I also think what's interesting is that I think you have another problem in that Discovery wants to be very hands-on, but yet has no idea how to run a movie company, particularly today. So this reminded me, the Comic-Con situation reminded me a lot of what happened to the upfronts. Remember the upfronts? And Warner Brothers Discovery had their first big presentation. David Zaslav himself showed up and did the presentation himself. And everybody was like, oh, what are you going to do? What are you going to announce? They had nothing. They had nothing. And everybody was like, that's weird. That's so crazy. And then Kevin Feige and Disney overall came in hot. Couple hours later, exact same thing. And you would think these companies would see this, and Warner Brothers would be like, I'm tired of this happening to us. This is embarrassing. And so same thing with the upfronts. Disney Feige comes in at the last minute. Hey, MSI Dragon, coming at the last minute, totally smokes the competition. With the same thing, with shock and awe. And also, you have to understand also that DC Warner Brothers is, Warner Brothers has their arm tied behind their back because they don't have full ownership of all their brands. Universal still has some Harry Potter ownership, so they're waiting for that to free up. But also, Harry Potter's a mess too. So someone's got to fix Harry Potter. Keltrick says, opinion on the idea that the DC film universe should reboot, but with animation instead. Do you remember the DC? I do remember the Universe Online cinematic trailer from a decade ago. That was incredible, Keltrick. Great stuff. You know what, Keltrick? This reminds me of yesterday's discussion about the upcoming Avatar: The Last Airbender movie about adult Aang and friends. I think that it would be really great to see if an adult animated movie could succeed there, and then maybe some other people would take note of that. Hey, Mumra, I don't know if we're going to do a Goonies watch-along. Maybe in August, because it's a slow month. We're doing Rear Window on Friday, so that's going to be great. It's going to be a hot summer night. I'm excited. But yeah. So I think that, Zaslav and his team, which he's installed his whole team at Warner Brothers, they need to stop thinking like they're running Discovery, and they need to start thinking like they're running Warner Brothers. Now, they are talking to Bob Iger, and Bob Iger's helping them because he hates Bob Chapek so much, but they clearly still are not learning these lessons. So I don't know. I don't know what they're going to do. But I told you what I would do. I would start with the Batman, and I would start from scratch, and I would get rid of everybody. Even the people who are working, like Gal Gadot. I'd be like, I'm sorry, Wonder Woman 1984 wasn't very good, and I can't have anybody remain. Because as long as, you just got to completely gut that thing. Because as long as there's even a scrap, even a glimmer of what was, people will be like, well, how about what I wanted back? And you're like, it's just not going to happen. And they should be honest about it. And I think they should release the numbers. I think if they released some of the viewing numbers for some of this stuff, I think people maybe wouldn't complain so much. But they won't do it. They won't do it. All right. And that's all I want to say on the matter before I get myself in trouble. All right. So we're doing an Ask Me Anything. Boom, baby. So let's see. Lewis said, Warner Brothers had 10 months and the money. Reshoot Aquaman 2 and The Flash with Deborah Ann Woll as Mira and Timothy Chalamet as The Flash. It's too much money. Lewis, I understand where you're coming from, but it's too much money. The Flash is not only done, but it's well into post-production. They just can't reshoot something like that. And Ezra Miller is playing multiple characters. So they're just stuck. I've never seen anything like that happen before in their defense. It's the worst thing I've ever seen. Edwin, I'm sorry you retracted your message, but thank you for the donation. All right, it's 2:09. We will go until 2:20 with Ask Me Anything, and then I'll do some shout-outs. Matt, what's the Rippaverse? I'm drawing a blank on what the Rippaverse is. I'm so glad you enjoyed today's conversation, Mark. Let's see here. Black Cat says, are we really getting 2 new live-action Harley Quinns in Joker 2 and the Batman 2? Well, Harley Quinn is not confirmed. I told you I think there's a very good chance that she's going to show up in the HBO Max Arkham Asylum series. And the word is that Lady Gaga isn't technically playing Harley Quinn, but she's playing the Joker's female love interest. So come on, give me a break. That's Harley Quinn. Unless she's supposed to be Punchline, who did not work out, by the way. So much promise for that character. But that character is just a total waste of everyone's time. But yeah, and that's also ridiculous. I think that you need, I guess there are variants now. Thank you, Americo. There are variants now in DC, in Marvel, but I don't know. I think you divide your audience and you have teams who are like, I like this Harley better. I like this Harley better. And you're like, you should all like the same Harley and promote that Harley. Hiya, boy. See here. Okay, Edwin's come back. Any idea on the Eternal sequel? I'd love to see them in future Marvel phases. Do you think they will announce it at the Disney Expo? I'd be shocked, Edwin. I think I would be shocked if you ever saw the Eternals again. I don't know. Icarus is in Marvel Zombies, and Icarus was pretty cool. But they just have. Kevin Feige has so many projects. I think he might be expanding too much. It's almost becoming like reading comic books. But reading comic books is a very different experience than watching a movie or a TV show. Let's see here. Snivy agrees with me on the DC universe, on the Batman. Let's see here. Cledgel says, after the multiverse, will the MCU go into the Mutants saga? I'm not sure what's going to happen with the X-Men. I think they're going to my guess is what you would see, like maybe Wolverine or Storm pop up first. I never saw the Kamala Khan thing coming, and I'm not happy about it, as you know. But I think that the X-Men, I will wait for as long as they want to get it right. I already think the Fantastic Four got off to a bad start with John Krasinski, with his fan casting. That did not work out. So I think that the X-Men, as I've said many, many times, I feel that the X-Men don't work so well when they're mixed in with the rest of the Marvel characters. They really need to stay in their own space. So I almost wish that would be what Marvel would do. So I don't think I want a mutant saga. I would like just like an X-Men movie that's kind of like its own thing. Melissa, thanks for enabling Super Chat. I can't always afford to support your channel. I'm glad to have a way to do it when I can afford to. Melissa, it is my absolute pleasure, and that is so sweet of you and such a nice comment. I'm glad, I'm trying out different things. Hey, Jonathan. Let's see here. Lewis says they replaced. Are you talking about Back to the Future? Let's see here. Wallflower says a Storm in Wakanda Forever. They could add her in an end credit sequence. I know that there's one end. I think that movie's going to stay pretty insulated. I would love to see Ryan Coogler be the one to introduce her. I think if anyone could get Storm right, it's Ryan Coogler. And he's so into strong women that it's like, come on, work your magic on Storm. But I haven't heard anything about her being in that movie, to be honest with you, at this point. Bell Trailer says, Chris Pine as Cyclops, please. That's not bad. Although everybody's been talking about Taron Egerton, and somebody said he should be Cyclops when I was talking about him for Wolverine. And now I can't unsee it. I'm like, he is Cyclops. He's even got the hair. If you watch Blackbird on Apple TV, and you should, because it's excellent, you'll be like, that's his Cyclops audition reel. Danny, I love Wanda and Harley. I love them both. Harley Quinn season 3 starts tomorrow. My review goes up at 6 p.m. tonight. I have to stagger out my videos so that the notifications go out. There can only be 3 notifications every 24 hours, frustratingly. I haven't seen the Oppenheimer teaser, and I wish they would release it online, because if I do go back to see Nope in theaters, I'll have to hide my eyes because I want to react to it for the first time with you. Paul Brunel says, if the Duffer Brothers were to join the MCU, what project do you think they would be best for their style? They've been pretty good for X-Men, actually. Big group, right? I think they've gotten quite good at action. They did very nice with the Will LGBT storyline this season. I think that would be fantastic. So, although I think the Duffer Brothers are so good at this point, I think they could do anything. Spy Mentor said, what are your thoughts on the Pinocchio trailer? Yeah, I saw that early this morning, the Guillermo del Toro, and I was like, that looks really dark. A lot of death. Not very cute and cuddly. I mean, we'll see. It's the War of the Pinocchios this fall season, with, of course, the Disney Pinocchio coming out September 9th, which I'm very excited about, and then this creepy Pinocchio coming out for the Christmas holiday season. I think because they feel it's going to have an awards potential. I don't know. I'm not feeling it, to be honest with you. I think this new Pinocchio looks, the Disney Pinocchio to me looks very good. Pinocchio is one of my father's favorite stories, that along with Mary Poppins, so I'm excited for him to see that. Vasily, you will get a Prey review when I can drop. I have Prey interviews dropping tomorrow. I have to say, I didn't love the movie. She had, like, the character is cool, but she has like the most insane plot armor and Mary Sue armor you've ever seen. You're like, what? But anyway, after I talked to them, I was like, oh, I appreciate this movie a lot more. So I hope you'll watch my interviews because it'll make you like the movie a heck of a lot more. But I can't review Prey until the embargo lifts, which is, I think, the day before release. Let me double check. The Prey embargo is August 4th, the day before release at 12 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. All right. Barbie says, Grace, can we at least get Wonder Woman 3 before they reboot? If so, what direction would you go in? Well, I heard rumors that they were going to have like a lot of female fighters in another Wonder Woman movie, which would be fantastic. It would be like the grudge match episode with all those female fighters in the ring. That was an incredible episode. I'll never forget it. But honestly, at this point, I'm like, let's just move on. I mean, Patty Jenkins owned Wonder Woman 1984 so much. And she was like, I'm going to do what I want to do. And I'm finally gotten rid of all those people telling me what to do. And they were nosy and I hated working with them. And you're like, oh yeah, how do you like it now? It was so bad. She was like, everybody was telling me I was wrong, but they finally let me do what I wanted. And you're like, oh yeah, how'd that work out for you? Keltrick is really using the super chat here. Apple that predicted that Matthew Bologna, by the way, used to be the editor-in-chief of Hollywood Reporter before he got let go. And now he works for something called like the Peck or something, or Puck News. All right, so he predicted that Apple and their $3 trillion would purchase Disney or Warner Brothers. No way. Maybe Warner Brothers. Somebody told me that they thought that maybe Warner Brothers someday would be sold again, and that everybody who currently purchased it at Discovery would just make a ton of money off of the sale. And I was like, sad. I can see that happening. But I don't think anyone will ever buy Disney. I don't think Disney would allow that to happen. Although it would be hard to get worse than what Bob Chapek is doing to the company. So I don't know anymore. I just want someone to run it who has that Disney magic. Disney magic. Diego watched this at 2 times speed and caught up. That's hilarious, Diego. I think Apple's doing pretty good. They won an Oscar. They have great television shows. They did very well with the Emmy nominations. Brett, Crawdads Sing, I'm not really into that movie, I'm afraid. And I don't see it doing particularly well at the Oscars, I fear. Let's see here. That's very nice of you, Danny. Funny Bunny, I haven't heard anything about Arcane Season 2, but I'm very excited about it, and it's going to be a super hot show. I reviewed it. I was one of the first people to talk about that show, and I was exciting. It's one of those rare times when, as a reviewer, I get to see something before everybody else. Severance is also like that, and I'm like, holy crap, this is amazing. And you know something's going to be really big before it becomes really big. That is such a cool place to be. It doesn't happen all the time, but sometimes it does, and Arcane was definitely one of those situations. I remember talking about people at the time and being like, watch some of this screener with me. I mean, you've just got to see this. This is incredible. So I will be doing even more coverage of Arcane. They dropped it 3 episodes a week, and I only covered it when it started and when it finished. I'll probably do week-to-week coverage this time, because I think Arcane is like on the level of The Boys in terms of being something that popular and that strong. Chris, I think there will almost definitely be a Little Mermaid tease at D23. I'm excited for D23! That's our next big event. The second weekend of September, it starts off with Disney Plus Day, with Pinocchio being released on the streaming service. And then we go into Disney D23, which will have not just Marvel news, but Star Wars news, Disney Live movie news, Disney animation news, and Disney theme park news. It's going to be so great. It's Anaheim. If you ever get a chance to go, going to these conventions is certainly an experience. I wouldn't do it all the time, but I certainly think at some point in your life you should try to go to one of them. I haven't heard anything about Wiccan or Hulkling, Brett, I'm afraid. I'm sorry. Let's see here. Whelm says, do you think Daredevil will air 3 episodes per week to keep it at a 6-week run? Like a movie a week? That's a pretty good idea, Whelmed. I would love that to be the case. 18 weeks. I can't even imagine covering a show for 18 weeks. But I guess we're going to find out what that looks like. We'll be like this month on Daredevil. Oh. Hey, Camilla. Gorilla My Dreams. I just read the Sandman comic last night, and then I stopped reading it because I was like, this is pretty good, and I don't want to have the show ruined for me because I'm going to watch the screeners starting today. It's 10 episodes, so that's a lot of screeners, and they're all about an hour each. So I got to get started on that. The review embargo for that lifts when the show goes up, interestingly enough, so I hope that doesn't mean it's bad. And then I also try and do a spoiler review. I don't know why everything's coming out on August 5th. It's very annoying to me from a coverage perspective. And then they're like, and the rest of August is just dead. And you're like, why? Why? Barbie, I have to look into the comics on Kang Dynasty and Secret Wars, and then I will kind of do some videos on that. But I have to refresh my memory. It's a little hard for me with some of these older comics because I don't care for the style of writing and storytelling of the Silver Age. Like when I had to read the Infinity War comics, I was like, this is brutal. This is really, really brutal. And so I gotta just force myself to read these older comics. By the way, I did go through Born Again, Daredevil Born Again, which is free if you're a Comixology Unlimited member. And I was like, way too adult. Way too adult. And also, they did most of what they had in the story that I thought that you could take away from it. They already did it in Daredevil, seasons 1 through 3 on Netflix. So I'm like, what is left for you to do with the story? I would suspect, based on what I can take away from the comic, that it's going to be called Born Again in name only. And then they're going to do whatever the hell they want. Thank you, Arun. That's such a sweet thing for you to say. Jason's going to be at Disneyland during D23. I love Disneyland. I miss the theme park so much. I don't even care if people are fighting at them and taking away from the Disney magic. I just want to be there anyway. I think Feige is a purist, Jason, and will use Jean Grey. I'm just praying he doesn't make them teenagers. I'm so scared that Kevin Feige is going to go with the original 5 X-Men as teenagers. And I'm like, oh my God, are we really going to go back to that point? I don't think I can take it. He might do the X-Men from when they relaunched and were more of a global team, right? With Wolverine and Storm and Colossus. That could be pretty cool. Maybe he'll do that because he has, apparently Taron Egerton has been talking to him about Wolverine. Cam Creative says, really love this season of Westworld. Do you think next season should be the last? Well, I don't know. Let me see how this season ends. I agree. This season of Westworld is incredible. It's the best the show has ever been. This show's never been this good, even season 1. I'm like, wow, they really turned things around. Shar says, I can't handle Peter Parker being a teenager for 20 years. Yeah, one of the things I was most excited about at the end of No Way Home is that Peter Parker became at least a college student and lived on his own and was more of an adult. I was like, finally, because adult Spider-Man stories are excellent. So I would like to get to some of those, please. I'm so tired of him being in high school. Mika says, why would Henry Cavill ruin his career by being so aggressive with his Superman demands? Well, I don't think that, I want to clarify on this. I think Henry Cavill is not like intentionally being difficult. Like, I don't think he's like a drama queen or anything. I think like he's just a difficult person. I mean, I'm sure a lot of you have met people like that who just can't get out of their own way. And so I think that, like, I think it's not just one thing. It's not, I don't think it's just like, oh, he wouldn't do the cameo, or he wouldn't do this, or he's asking for more money. I think it's just like, nobody has a good time working with him. And I've had people DM me who say, thank you for speaking up about this, who are way below the line, who've had to work with him on sets or studio visits. And they're like, he's really not nice to be around. And so I think that's the issue. Oh yes, I've really gone over. I love talking to you guys. I do. It's so much fun. All right, let me do some shout outs, okay? Let me do some shout outs. And tomorrow's the big stream where anyone can comment. And then, of course, also don't forget, if you're a BTT Movie Club member, we're doing our Rear Window Watch Along at 9 p.m. on Friday evening, Eastern Standard Time. It's going to be great. I love that movie so much. I watch it every summer. Oh, Elliot, you watched Rebecca? Oh, I'm so glad that you did. It's such a good movie. Our newswriter had to hit mute button when the boss came into the office. I'm glad you didn't get caught. So let's see here. Svex says, sitting here watching the stream from Amsterdam, eating some chicken nuggets. Oh, I'm jealous. So delicious. Much love to you too, Argus. Hey, Tanya. I always love seeing you. Diego says, Grace, I missed your comic book channel. Bring back from comics to movies. Oh, that was a fun series, Diego. I do share, if you super follow me on Twitter, every week I do share my comic book stack. Hey, Anthony Zappin. I was thinking, Snivvylink says, sneakily watching you at work. I love it. I love it. I'm glad I can make the day go a little faster. I might bring maybe in some, I'm trying to do more live streams like I'm supposed to. Maybe I'll bring back a comic book segment where I talk about some of the comic books I've been reading. I gotta tell you though, not a lot, the comic book industry is really in the pits these days. Not a lot of great comics. Danny O is being lazy in Chicago. KJ McCarthy is enjoying this cloudy day on vacation watching movies all night. Wow, what a great time. Oh, thanks, Gorilla. My dreams. I'm glad you also like my new shirt. Chico says, chilling on my couch while watching the live stream on my TV. Awesome. Oh, Bell Trailer says, flight attendant based in Chicago on call for international flying today. Wow, what a jet set life. Literally, that's so cool. And also, thank you for what you do. I know it's been very trying during the pandemic. Tenerife says, I'm watching the stream while washing my face. Oh, wow, way to multitask. Thomas Hastings says, watching from Colorado, eating toast with honey from my neighbor's hive. Oh, wow, that's very fresh. I do love honey. I like honey on an English muffin. That's my favorite thing. Matt says, coming out from work in Michigan after a double shift. Ah, good for you. I'm glad, you must feel very satisfied. The day is over. Benz is working out in Hungary. I love you guys being all over the globe. It's so cool. Courtney says, made tortilla bowls for me and my boyfriend for dinner. Ah, great emoji choice. That sounds delicious. Cameron Cox says, watching in Utah while I babysit my dog and her newborn puppy. Oh, that must be adorable. I said I wasn't a pet person, and people came to think that I disliked animals or something. I'm like, no, I love animals. I prefer humans to animals. I'm sorry. I mean, I like animals quite a bit, but I prefer engaging with humanity. That's always my take on it. Josh says, eating a chicken wrap while watching you and the Winter Soldier. Ah, that's awesome. I love the Winter Soldier. That's a great movie. Wallflower says, I'm in Argentina reading less. It's an amazing book and I'm enjoying it a lot. Oh, that's great. Thanks for the recommendation. Char says, listening to you while I work from home in South Florida. My 8-year-old loves your Marvel and animation reviews. Ah, that's so great. Hi to your 8-year-old. That's adorable. Hello. Denzel is stuck in traffic. Oh, I'm glad we can keep you company. Keith says, chilling at my parents in Minnesota, really enjoying live streams this week. Oh, I'm so glad to hear that. Let's see here. Thomas, the Super Pets review is up. That's where I said that. King Louis, just tuning in. That's okay. That's okay. Tomorrow's stream will be. I'm sorry that the stream was not what I promised it would be. Hey, Juan Carlos. At one point in my life, I was always on time for things. In fact, I was always about 5 to 10 minutes early, but nobody else was ever on time. So I was like, screw it. I'm done with being on time. And that's the story of my life. So I'm sorry. I was particularly late today, so I apologize. Alex says, watching from the French pavilion at Epcot. I'm so jealous, Alex. So jealous. Michael Mark says, I'm at the Bronx Zoo while watching you. Oh, that's fantastic. I did some events at the Bronx Zoo during the pandemic. They had like a Christmas lights thing, and it was really fantastic. So that's a great zoo. I hope you're having a good day. Spying Mentor said, just finished watching The Boys and going to start Only Murders in the Building. Oh, you're having a great day. Matt says, I'm always 15 minutes early. I can't help it. AJ Jones says, snacking on a black and white cookie on the Virginia coast. Glad I caught the end of the live stream. Ah, you guys are the best. I love talking to you. I hope you enjoyed today's stream. Good luck with the rest of your day, and I will see you tomorrow for our mega stream where anyone can comment, and we'll see how that works out. All right, everybody, thank you. Thank you for watching. If you're a member, thank you so much for being a member, and I'll see you soon. Okay, and the Harley Quinn review is locked and loaded. It will publish at 6 p.m. I've uploaded it. It's all done, so it'll definitely go up at that time. Okay, bye, everybody. Bye.